Fisher was at LSU with both Jimbo and Saban. I'm like, dude, he was like this. He's like the kid caught in the middle of the divorce right here. They're going back and forth. He's got his head coach, and then he's got his offensive coordinator on the other side, and these guys are straight up throwing haymakers at each other. Like, I want you to think about this. Nick Saban, I mean, accused him obviously of buying players and buying the deal, his recruiting class, but Jimbo Fisher's retort was to sarcastically call this guy the god of football, the czar of football. Everybody thinks, he hung the moon, and an unrelenting narcissist, and then says, go talk to his other assistants. They'll tell you where the bodies are buried. They'll tell you what went on. And I'm like, man, I've never heard another dude. There's an unwritten rule, like, you stay off the top ropes, man. You don't bring the chair out of the crowd. You make sure that you keep that thing between the lines. And, dude, Jimbo threw some hard ones. And I asked Nick, I'm like, have you called him yet? And he's like, yeah, I have. And he never really addressed it because Jimbo's like, he's called. I ain't answering. And so there's something deep and personal there that goes way beyond any of the things that we were talking about.
Bobby, it did feel like he had a little bit of a passive, aggressive, irritated to be there appeal on your show, And I think that's every interview he's ever done. Mm-hmm. It's kind of like, why am I here? He knows he has to do it for recruiting, all the shit he has to do. I think he enjoys talking to Belichick. Like, there's been some clips where he's talking like super high-end football stuff. But all the other stuff, it feels like he's annoyed at all times. We thought you should have, hey, Bob, you could have took your swing there. You could have.
Yeah.
Bob, you could have been like, Nick, I'm an Ohio State guy. You've been at the top of the mountain for all this time. We've all assumed that you have cheated to get to where you are. Jimbo alluded to you doing such a thing. Now you kind of sound like a hypocrite. Was there any thought of you doing that? Or were you like, nah, there's no reason for me to be that guy?
Listen, out of respect for Jacob, who I was on with, who helped get him on, a former player of his, I wasn't going to be that dude and be the heel in that situation. So I left it all to Jacob. It's like, all right, we'll do this. We'll keep this stuff fairly light, fairly topical, because we had this all scheduled before any of that happened.
Oh, okay. We didn't know.
Oh, yeah, this wasn't in response. And they set up, and his SID, I don't think wanted him to do it. And Nick he's like, I agreed to this. I'm coming on. I'm like, okay. So I wanted to keep that thing pretty respectful. I didn't want to be that guy with your boy, like, hey, you have, Aaron, AJ helps get Aaron on, and then all of a sudden you're asking Aaron about all kinds of nonsense and everything else. Like, hey, man, how you going to do this to me? Why are you going to be that guy and throw that stuff? And you're texting me to ask him about the damn handshake on October 8th. Like, how's that going to look? I'm like, my goodness, dude. He may have strangled me through the phone.
Bob, weren't you though surprised by Jimbo? Like, Jimbo went after him personally, like as a man, I feel like, and that's the thing. You say don't bring the chair out of the crowd. Like, do you think Saban's going to have to address that? Or I would imagine that would almost hurt more than him saying, hey, these are recruiting violations.
These are guys that they won a national championship together. Like, that's what, it's crazy. Like, Jimbo was the offensive coordinator for 5 years. And this guy thinks he's, the czar of football, and everyone thinks he's a football god. Like, that's, to me, getting personal right there. And then the other element of it, dude, I talk about, like, that's some name calling. So you get a little bit of that. And that's where it starts to sound a little personal. But then he starts talking. You talk to all his assistants. And they'll tell you what's going on. That's where that thing got a little bit sideways. I'm like, man, if you give Jimbo a drink or two right now, he might tell, like, a legit story that might sink this whole ship.
Do we have those clips still on the dais? He fucking went.
Oh, yeah.
By the way, unlike, I thought Saban called that to answer. You guys having that pre-scheduled is vastly different than Jimbo. Jimbo did not have a planned press conference. He said, give me the fucking microphone. This son of a bitch needs to learn that he can't call me a cheater. This is what he said. For those that didn't hear all that Jimbo talked about, it is, I think, vital for you to hear it again because of how much it is. These are personal shots. Like, this is, how far will this go? How long has this been brewing, you think, from Jimbo and Nick? Like, old friends? Like, are they just waiting for an opportunity to say fuck you to each other? Here's one of the clips from Jimbo yesterday in response to Nick Saban calling him a cheater, basically.
Any contact with Nick since?
No. Oh, he's called.
He's called. Fuck. Good follow-up,
You just didn't take the call?
Not going to. We're done.
And
he shows you who he is.
And then I just wanted to...
He's the greatest ever, huh?
And then I just wanted
When you got all the advantages, it's easy.
and I just wanted to
How about that guy wanting to get that question, Bob?
He had that reporter so far on his heels. Like, he'd ask a follow up, and he got all the answers. He thinks he's God. He's done it all. I mean,
Run that next one. Run the God one. Here's the God one. Here's the God one, Bobby. This one's even better.
Some people think they're God.
Huh?
Go dig into how God did his deal. You may find out about a guy that a lot of things you don't want to know. We built him up to be the czar of football. Go dig into his past, or anybody that's ever coached with him. You can find out anything you want to find out, what he does and how he does it. And it's despicable.
Bob, what do you think that means? Do you think he's calling for somebody to look into it? And do you think anybody will do that in the modern world that we're in?
I think Greg Sankey was probably like, hey, Dad's coming back. You guys are going to separate everybody. We're not going to start throwing chairs like that because all this is going to do is sink. These guys have both won national championships. I mean, and for him to sit there, he thinks he's God. Go look at how God did it. Like, that's basically him saying that Nick has cheated his whole way through this. And I wasn't going to try to get that personal with him. And as I'm sitting there thinking about it, like, I'm trying to think in my life, is there something that I could do to be that personal and, like, throw somebody out? And, like, my boy over there, you know, your boy, Hawk, sitting there, I mean, I love him. I love his wife. And imagine sitting there with one of your best friends for, like, 20 years, dude that you had worked with, and respect with, had success with, and you're drunk one night, and there's so much animosity that had bubbled up. You're like, hey, dude, you should start hearing about his past. I just start dumping out all these terrible stories, you know, and then say, hey, look, ask him about this one. Ask him about that one. Ask him about that night in Vegas. Ask him about the time we dumped that dead hooker in the dumpster. Like, throwing that stuff out. Like, that's basically what Nick Saban was throwing out there.
What year?
What is this?
Rewind.
Hold on, it feels like there's going to be more. Don't you guys be... I don't know.
Yeah, keep going, Bob. Keep giving him more examples.
No, but you're right. I think, but the thing that you're talking about is getting boozed up and doing this. Jimbo, this was woke up in the morning.
Yeah.
He was like,
Well, think of, though,
what did
has
Saban
Jimbo
say last
said-
night?
Think about it, Pat. What has Jimbo said behind closed doors for years and years? If this is what he's saying publicly, I would imagine he's really let this out to other people he knows. So do you think, Bob, like, are we going to see other former players maybe come out and defend each side? Like, what do you think we're going to see?
Hold on.
now?
Former Florida State player said what? Alabama offered him 6 figures or something like that.
Really?
I think that was like a tweet yesterday. But we don't know what's real and what isn't at this point, you know, with anybody.
Yeah, those Jimbo guys.
We have no idea.
How much do you think about this, though? They have the SEC spring meetings coming up. Those are going to be in Destin, Florida in 2 weeks. He said go ask his assistant coaches, guys who have coached for him. You start looking at Arkansas's head coach. You start looking at Napier at Florida.
Lane.
Kirby Smart. I mean, Lane Kiffin. Lane Kiffin is the guy who I really want to see be asked about all this. Because think about our boy Lane. Like, he is the dude on the playground who loves to start the fight and then back on out and just sit back and eat some popcorn and watch that thing. So I'm curious, man. Greg Sankey may literally get all those guys in a room and be like, listen, dudes, we're shutting this thing down right now. No one's going to talk about anybody's past. Nobody's going to get into how maybe you cheated, maybe you've done this, you've done that. It is over, and we're shutting this thing down. Because like you said, it got so personal. Like AJ pointed out, like, how long this must have been bubbling for so long, and there must have been so much said behind the scenes that when Nick threw this stuff out there, it's like, dude, it's over. I'm scrambling the jets. We're talking about as if our country just got attacked by a terrorist attack. We're calling up the press conference right now on a Thursday morning at 10 o'clock, and I'm going to respond to all of these allegations. And you don't even need to ask me questions. I'm just going to spill everything out and do your job for you.
While you're trying to ask questions, I'm actually going to cut you off. I got more to say, actually. Shut the fuck up. I got more to say. Stop asking your fucking question. Huh? You think he's good, huh? I'm not done yet, sir. Please, let me continue to bury the old friend of mine. I'm fascinated by it all. And before the boys have their question for the General, I have one more follow-up. Like, what you just said there about you and AJ Hawk's relationship, did that actually happen? Like, should we send, what did you guys bury? What happened?
Listen, have you ever seen the movie Very Bad Things, Pat?
No. That would be the complete opposite of something I would sign up to watch. I'm a very, very optimistic, positive person.
I know you're a very optimistic person. I think it might be a movie you want to watch, and it'll just kind of, tantalize the mind and the imagination with some of the things you think you can get into if you know somebody close enough for long enough that I'm not saying you're going all the way there, But you know what? There might be some great little stories here and there, some little nuggets for everybody. So go watch. That's a little homework for you.
We knew AJ was a fucking murderer.
Dirtbag.
Didn't we?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, we did.
Serial
Psychopath.
killer.
We said it a bunch.
Scumbag.
Anybody who washes their clothes every night, doesn't put any sauce on food, hasn't had a carb since 1997. Pat, you've got a question of whether or not he's cutting people up and throwing them in dumpsters.
I'd be a lot more lean if I had have a carb since '97. I eat plenty of carbs.
Oh, okay.
Okay,
That's
yeah,
the only
okay.
thing he defended.
Yeah.
That's the only thing he defended on that. That's
Well,
a
yeah, the
problem.
other stuff I don't need to defend.
Oh, of course.
Okay,
of course.
sure.
Go ahead, Ty.
We're not
General,
very
given
different.
all
We're not
this
bad.
stuff and what we know, if both of these guys have like
Connor.
8 beers and then go out into a back alley, who you got in a fist fight? Jimbo or Saban?
I think Jimbo's younger. Hell, Nick Saban's
only like
like
56.
70 years old. The thing is, Pat, they're both from West Virginia. I know you're a Pitt guy, so it's not that far down the road.
Well,
I mean, these guys might have a little scrappiness to them, but I would probably have to take Jimbo at this point just because he's younger and, I mean, quote, he's got ranches. And so anybody that's, quote, got ranches, you know that they can do a little something.
what is that from?
Well, that's what he said when they asked him about leaving Texas A&M to go to LSU. He goes, why would I leave A&M? I got ranches in Texas. And I'm like, do we really need the ES on the end? It's just like the mic drop of, yeah, we know you get paid $75 million, dude. We know that you're super wealthy. Like, he just dropped out I got ranches in Texas.
I
Plural.
guess you're a good person to ask about this because you're still running with college kids and trying to beat them on a daily basis. The competitive stamina of Saban and Jimbo Fisher to still care this much at the age with all the money they've made, all the success that they've had. Publicly, they are emotionally invested and pissed off about this. I find that impressive to have that trait. I don't know if as I get older, I'm going to give a fuck enough.
Yeah.
About anything to really answer the way they have. But that I feel like that's part of the beauty of college football, right? That's why people who love college football because it's a cult-like situation. Everybody's all in everywhere. Do you see that continuing with the NIL stuff, Bob? Do you think the environment and culture of college football is going to remain through all this?
I mean, that's the thing that makes college football so special and even separates it a little bit from the NFL. And because you sit there on Saturdays and you watch full-grown men who may be a banker on Monday through Friday, 9 to 5, and on the Saturday afternoon, they're super boozed up. They're going to cheer on their team. And you know what? If you talk trash about their team, they're going to fight you in the parking lot. They're a grown 48-year-old man with probably 3 kids that are going to go to some soccer games on Sunday, and they're sitting there in a polo with whatever emblem they've got. And if you're wearing the wrong one and talking trash, they're going to come at you. And so I hope that still stays there with the fan base. I hope that it still stays there with the coaches. I think that it will, largely because people still care a lot. And I think they're going to probably find a way to tweak this NIL thing, but it's just going to take a little bit of time to figure it out.